Okay guys, hello, it's Greg, and I want to talk to you about a topic today that I see a lot of employees taking advantage of. I don't think it's a good idea, but I think some employees are way too comfortable and it's taking a loan out on their TSP or their 401k. Okay, so guys, I meet with a lot of people virtually. I meet people face to face all over the country. And I also get a lot of questions from folks. And one thing that is an option for you is to take a loan out of your 401k account, your TSP account. And I want to talk to you about something that I don't hear anyone else talking about that I think is very important for you to understand before you take such a loan. Okay, now let me go over a few of the things that I hear other people say, which are true, and I'll expand on that. Okay, and if you haven't heard these things, then maybe this is news to you, right? So you are able to take out up to $50,000 of a loan out of your TSP, so long as you at least have a $100,000 balance. So you have a $100,000 balance, you can take up to 50% of your balance, but no more than $50,000. Okay. On top of that, we have two types of loans, right? They have a general purpose loan and a residential loan. Okay, so you could take those loans out, or you could take a loan out based on one of the two. The residential loan is used, has to be used towards the purchase of a primary residence. Okay, there's more nuances to those details that I think that you could very easily search. You don't need me to tell you about it, so I'm going to leave it at that. I want to cover more of the things that are in between the lines that you may not get in the literature, but when you see the math play out or the strategy play out, you might open your eyes to change. It might open your eyes to a few things that you weren't thinking about and maybe sway your decision. Okay, so if you were to take a TSP general purpose loan, the fee they charge you is $50. If you go with the residential, that loan, the fee for that loan, what kind of a processing fee is about $100. Okay, so let's talk about that. And I want to use an example that I think some of you can relate to. But the common thing a lot of people know is that, okay, if let's say I take a $30,000 loan out of my TSP, right? A lot of you, common sense will tell you, okay, well, if I take $30,000 out, and that money was originally in the C fund, the S fund, the I fund, or even the G fund, right? That money is no longer at work. It is no longer compounding and growing with the stock market, right? So when you remove that money, it's no longer working. Is that a negative thing? Yes, but based on your needs or you and your family's needs, you might say, hey, I have a problem, I have a need that is a higher priority than that $30,000 in the TSP, so I'm gonna go and pull a loan, right? So that's one of the things that people talk about, they know about, very common thing. Another negative is there's a fees associated with it, right? So let's say I need $30,000 for a general purpose loan. If the fee is $50, I have to make a request for $30,050 so I can get my $30,000 and still cover the $50 fee. All right. Another argument I hear, I think it's a weak argument, but again, I want to make sure that it's on the table and you're aware of it, is that, oh, let's say I take $30,000 out of the TSP, and while that money is no longer working, it's out of the stock market. Well, what if the market goes down? Right? If the market goes down, then I still have my $30,000. I didn't lose any of it. And I think that's a very weak argument. First of all, the stock market, you should know, if you were investing money, will go up and down, right? But in a general sense, right, it's going up, right? It does fluctuate and does have cycles, but it's for the most part going up, right? And pulling the money out of the market and preventing it from going down, I think is a very poor excuse to feel good about pulling money out, right? Excuse the expression, but I associate that with, it's like someone stabbing you in the back with a knife and you're saying, well, it's not so bad because after they stabbed me, they pulled it halfway out. So, I'm better off than I could have been, right? So I think it's a very weak argument, and it should not be a reason that you consider when you're making that decision. Okay. And the one thing I'm going to talk about today, I don't hear anybody else talking about when you, and I'll run the math for you so you can see a case study, is that when, for the most part, when you pull that money out of the TSP and then you pay it back slowly or lump sum or a combination of the two, for the most part, you're actually paying the income taxes on that money. You're paying them twice. And on top of that, you're paying a processing fee. Okay? So if that doesn't make sense to you, I'm gonna run the math and I'll kind of walk you through it. But I think this is the biggest reason why, if you should have a need, maybe you need some money to buy a new car, or maybe to cover some of the tuition for college or something like that, or you have a little bit of emergency, why that you might want to explore other options like personal loans or vehicle loans to explore, rather than putting money out of your 401k account. An account that, again, we should be going into and dumping money in and investing and hopefully compounding, so that it takes care of us later on in retirement when we're no longer able to work. Okay? So let me run a case study, give it an example. And if you have any thoughts or maybe conflicting opinions, that's okay. I welcome that. Maybe you could put them in the comments or reach out to me. But this is something that I want to point out before you make a decision to take a loan. Okay? So this is the case study, right? Let's assume the case is we have a VA employee and they want to take out $30,000, right? The $30,000 could be for an emergency, or let's say to purchase a new car, right? And they say, oh, well, the interest rate on the G fund, which is the loan interest rate, is cheaper than what's on the market. So let's go ahead and borrow the money out of our 401k. So the dollar amount is $30,000. Okay, so let's go over here. So you have $30,000, right, that we're pulling out. Now, when that money goes into the TSP, the money is in the TSP. Now, it could be in the traditional side of the TSP bucket or the Roth. It actually doesn't matter, right? It could be one, the other, or a little bit of both. When that money is in the TSP, you are going to pay income taxes on that money, right? If it's on the Roth side of the bucket, you're going to pay income taxes right now, right? If you put that money in the traditional side of the bucket, you're going to pay the income taxes on that money later on in life. But bottom line, you will pay income taxes, okay? So let's talk about that money when it flows in, okay? So this $30,000, you just didn't earn $30,000 and then dump it in. You are going to pay income taxes. And for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to use a pretty common tax bracket, right? I know some of you may be more, maybe some of you in a lower tax bracket, that's fine. But for the sake of exercise, I think this will make the point. We're going to use the 24% income tax bracket, all right? So what is 24% income taxes on $30,000, right? So we get that, what is, right, 24%, and I ran the math offline. So the income taxes you would pay on this money is $7,200, okay? So let's keep that in mind, right? Now, on top of paying income taxes on this money, when you borrow it, there's an interest rate you're going to pay into, and it's usually equal to the interest rate of the G fund at that time, okay? Now, for the sake of this exercise, I'm going to use a round number, right? We're shooting this in January 2024. I just checked today, the G fund interest rate is actually 4.5%. I'm going to keep the numbers round, and we'll keep it a pretty reasonable 4%, okay? So what is going to be the interest rate on $30,000? All right? So here's our $30,000 again. And our interest rate is 4%. Well, how much money does that come out to? That comes out to $1,200, right? So this is money that we're going to be paying, right? We're going to be paying interest on the loan, and we're also going to pay income taxes on the money before it goes into the TSP account, okay? Now, on top of that, we also want to account for, I'll put it down here, right? So we have 72,000, let's box these in. Plus, we also have, it's a personal loan, right? Because it's for a vehicle. We're also going to be charged a $50 processing fee, right? So this is all money we got to pay, okay? Now, this is the part that nobody talks about. We have a $30,000 loan. We're paying it back at 4% every 2 weeks. My question that I want you to ask yourself is, where are we going to get the money to pay back this loan? Where is the money coming from? For most of us, okay, again, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but for most of us, it's going to come from the same paycheck that deposited or contributed to the $30,000 to begin with. And when we put that money from our paycheck to pay this loan, well, again, that money is not tax-free. We pay income taxes on that money too. So that's the point I'm trying to make. So again, if we're gonna pay back $30,000, we're gonna do this again, right? And I'll put MyPay up here, right? So the MyPay website. So just to indicate that this is money coming from our bi-weekly paycheck. So we're gonna do another $30,000, right? Because this is the money we're gonna need to pay back that loan. And let's say again, we're back at our 24% income tax bracket for another $7,200. Okay, so when we put the money initially in, we paid income taxes, right? If we put into the Roth, we paid income taxes now. Well, when we take the money out of retirement, if it's traditional, we're going to pay the income taxes then. But bottom line, sooner or later, we're going to pay income taxes on the contribution. When we pay back the loan, we're going to pay interest, 4% interest rate. We have $1,200. Processing fee of $50. Now, when we pay the money back, because we owe it as a loan, we're going to pay back more than likely out of our paycheck. Okay. So before I add all this up, let me talk to you about some other options. Right? To be fair, talk about some other things that might be different. Let's say you're not going to pay the loan back from your paycheck. How can we pay this loan back in a manner that's tax-free? So we're not paying those extra income taxes. Is it possible? Yes, it's possible. Right? Maybe you're paying this loan back, but you're using money. Let's say you or your spouse is a disabled veteran, getting a little bit of disability. That money's tax-free. So if you pay that back, the money you're using, you're right, it's tax-free. Or let's say you pull a loan, and the way you're going to pay this loan back is, let's say you sell a house, and that house has a good amount of equity in it, right? And when let's say you sell the house and you have maybe $100,000, $1,000 in equity, which is a capital gain, but because you're single, right, you get a tax exemption of $250,000 to sell any profits on your primary residence sale. If you're married, you get up to $500,000 of tax exemption on the profits, right? So essentially that money, that profit or the capital gain will be tax-free. Well, if you use that and pay it back, then yeah, it might be tax-free money. Or, you might be paying it back with an inheritance where someone paid taxes on that money, but you didn't. So in those three cases, and I'm sure there's a few more out there, right? If you were to use that kind of money, then yeah, maybe you don't pay income taxes twice. You only pay it one time. But let's be realistic for most people. Most of us, that money is going to come, the payback is going to come from either a paycheck, right? Or it's going to come, indirectly from a spouse's paycheck, indirectly, right? Maybe you spend more money from your paycheck that should have been going to a monthly bill, and instead a spouse's paycheck will cover that monthly bill. So it's kind of indirectly. So this is the point I want to make. This is the thing I want you to think about, because to get a $30,000 of cash to buy a car in this example, or some other major purchase or urgent purchase, this is all the money we're paying to get that money. So let's add that up, right? So we add up the initial contribution, right? So this is our initial contribution, right? The interest rate we're gonna pay on that money. Some of you are better at math than me. You've already figured this out, right? The $50 fee we're gonna be paying to just initiate this loan. And then to repay the loan, the income taxes we're paying on that money again, which is another $72, right? So what does that bring us to? That brings us to, I ran the math a little bit earlier, right? So this is $15,650. $15,650 in income taxes before and after, $1,200 in interest, and a $50 fee. Ladies and gentlemen, think about this. To gain $30,000, it cost us $15,650, right? Because and again, it's going back to why you might have done this. Some of you might have looked at the interest rates in the market, and right now, January 2024 interest rates are bad on everything, vehicles, home loans, and stuff like that, right? But how bad are they, right? So instead of taking an auto loan for, let's say, 5%, 6%, if I look at this, what percentage is $15,650 of $30,000? My calculation, right? And you run the math for yourself. The percentage is 52%. 52%. You paid 52% on to get that money. In income taxes, both before and after, interest and fees, right? So think about that. Again, I went on top of that to insult to injury. Now that $30,000 you pulled out of the stock market, right? It's no longer working on compounding. And, you know, in historically our economy, money, our investments in U.S. businesses makes money 8 out of 10 years. So, you know, more than likely you're going to miss opportunities to grow your money and compound. So guys, please think about this, right? You run your math and all that. You might rationalize that, oh, you know, well, the interest rate I'm paying goes back into my account. I'm really paying myself. And, you know, there's a lot to be said about that. But the thing I want you to think about, and again, maybe in the money you pay back, maybe it's not coming out of your paycheck, right? Maybe indirectly you're paying it through maybe you're indirectly paying it through some other account you have out there. Maybe, I doubt it for most of us, but maybe that's what's going on. But again, for most of us, think about that, 52% on your money. So is that auto insurance, that auto loan out there for 6%, does it really look that bad at this point? Right? So I want you to think about that. Okay, so there's a lot of other implications if this was a residential loan and blah, 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 and maybe there's a whole lot of conversation that could happen. And I'm not, you know, discounting that there's other arguments out there. But I just want to bring this to your attention so it's something for you or maybe you and your spouse to think about before you very quickly take a loan. Because I'm going to tell you right now, most of the people I've met, I think we pull loans out of our 401k a little too quickly, okay? And I get it, you know, a lot of people out there, you're hurting, especially during COVID. There's, you know, even though as a federal employee, maybe we were able to maintain stability in our job, but some of our spouses weren't so lucky, right? Some of our kids, adult kids working, they weren't so lucky. You know, we had to maybe pick up some of the slack for that. So again, please think about this. If you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll put my email address in the comments if you have any questions. But something to think about before you pull that loan. Oh, I grit my teeth every time I see it just because I know the price you're paying to get the money you need. Okay. With that said, guys, Greg, I hope this gives you something to think about. I'm glad you joined us in the video, and I look forward to hearing what are your thoughts, right? So have a great day. Bye.